finger?
Sure.
Oh, at the credits.
John is quoted as saying, "Pull my finger, let's start the news."
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. In this episode of the news, we're going to be talking about the midnight blizzard attack. We're also going to be discussing the much crappier named Bank of America breach. Boo.
Caw-caw.
So bad. We're going to be talking about so much cloud stuff, y'all. Like, there's so many different cloud stories that are coming up. Cloud servers and sensitive emails being spilt online. Cisco laying off thousands of employees to focus on AI, which is Cisco. It's just not going to work for you. AI is a thing, just not for you. But we'll get to that here in just a little bit. U.S. Internet leaked years of internal customer emails through one of their business.
It's a funny story because
it's an awesome story. Like, the stories today are amazing. Non-production systems. The CSO Online website has some good stuff there. So just really good stuff. Let's get to it. I'm joined by my illustrious cast. I've got Hack McDuck who's joining us. We also have Joff, just Joff.
Comment.
Just Joff, McDur, hacky hack, Joff.
Yeah, rocking the Red Seed shirts. Very good. We got Ralphie. Just Ralphie.
Ralphie.
And
Florida man today, just Ralphie. We have Penn is on, Ryan as always. So thanks, Ryan, for making us look awesome. Speaking of looking awesome, we have Kelly Tarala. So she's going to be helping us with all of our compliance needs that we may be running to. And then also, Zach! We got Zach on as well. So we're very happy to have Zach here. So which story do we want to talk about? Because I'm a little burnt out. For those of you that don't know, I'm down in the down someplace warm, getting sun, which is great. But that means my brain's not functioning properly. So what story should we jump with? Should we jump in the midnight blizzard?
what's the midnight blizzard?
I feel like you thought in the list, John.
Blizzard.
We're not allowed to go off
that's
script.
kind of the name of my next band.
Yeah.
It is honestly one of the greatest.
Looks like it turned on. There we go.
Name.
Okay. What is
Go
Midnight
ahead.
Blizzard, John? APT 29, ATP.
Yeah. Who came up with this name?
Yeah, it's the Russian Midnight Blizzard hackers. I don't know exactly how they got their name, but I'm sure somebody who's listening does. If they could tell us how Midnight Blizzard got their name.
Oh, well,
No.
I know what it
Did
is
they
now
hack
because we
Blizzard?
talked about it. We didn't, it wasn't called Midnight Blizzard when we talked about it. It's the one with the Microsoft dev account that was compromised, right?
Yep, because it didn't have two-factor authentication. It was a test account.
Password spray against Microsoft worked. It's like they didn't think about whether they should do it. They just did it, and then it worked. And they were
Wait,
like,
so we're
"Whoa."
going back to the same story? What's happened?
Because now it has a
Yeah.
name. That's the new.
And it has a
new
name
update.
and a theme song, which we're going to play later.
there-
Wait. Does it have a logo though? We need
There
a
work. Yeah, no, it does. It's just it's like a little snowflake.
It
It's
does.
still
It was
Cozy
generated
Bear,
by
though.
The
AI.
little snow.
That's not a Blizzard.
Yeah, I don't
that's a
think we
Snoop.
really has anything changed. I mean, we did talk about it before. I guess. Okay.
They also tied in the Cloudflare-Atlassian
Amazing
breach
picture.
as part of this.
Yeah. Well.
This gets
Okay.
into
So
a theme. Right, I think that this is the reason why we're talking about it, and the reason why it came up is once it's in the news again. But this is going to be a theme today, is there's a lot of SaaS going on in the news today. There's a lot of breaching of SaaS.
wait, software as a service SaaS or like Snark?
Software
Sassy.
as a SaaS.
Okay.
It
So you're
really
not
was
going to
awful.
Z snap at any point.
No.
This
But
graphic
gets into-
is pretty cool though.
It is a very good graphic. We should just leave that up. But yeah, we've got a lot of attacks that deal with software as a service today. And I think that this kind of brings it more in line with like, no, this is a big freaking deal. And this also gets back onto the soapbox that I keep trying to stand on. if your organization does not have two-factor authentication, that will be a high-risk vulnerability discovered, because we're seeing organization after organization after organization that initial point of compromise is that fundamental lack of two-factor authentication or
Well, so
no
our,
authentication. Some of the stories
yeah,
we'll
our
talk about.
very own, he's not here today, sadly, but our very own Andrew Krug was quoted in an article by CSO Online, basically kind of, it's like a meta article similar to what we're talking about now, but it's essentially the non-production system security is the same as production system security, right? It's like the Atlassian system that was compromised that led to Cloudflare's breach was not probably considered a production system. However, it led to a widespread outage, or that they had to self-induce because it was, unknown access to unknown servers that ended up escalating way beyond what anyone probably would have imagined. Same thing happened with Midnight Blizzard. You have non-production accounts that don't have MFA because they're non-production, and then they get pivoted into real data access, real production data access. So I guess that's kind of the theme, right? It's like, just because it's non-production doesn't mean it's not important to have MFA, like John mentioned, or have other monitoring or whatever.
And we're gonna get this. We're gonna get the story up, the CSO Online story. Ryan can grab that. I just put it in the private chat. There we go. So, for those of us that have been doing testing for a long time, this is a very common gripe that customers have, right? Especially whenever you're doing red teaming or just an external, where you find something that's quote unquote not production, you gain access to that, and possibly you pivot, maybe you don't. I don't know, depending on the time frame that you have. And when you do that, it's very, very common for customers to say, oh, I don't think that this is a high or a critical, because what you got on was not a production system. Even if we can show them, no, there was in fact production data on this system. It's just continuous. We see this in the testing space where people are constantly pushing back. And I think that this gets into a larger meta problem in this space. Gets into vulnerability prioritization, right? And this is one of those things that just absolutely grinds my gears, which, by the way, we have a webcast coming up this Thursday about PCI 4.0 and grinding gears, I guess. But this is one of those things that absolutely grinds my gears, is there's so many organizations that want vulnerability prioritization. They want artificial intelligence to tell them, okay, this is your critical system. This is a critical vulnerability. This is critical. You need to fix this. And they don't understand that everything is interrelated. And many of the successful attacks that we get are going through low or informational vulnerabilities on non-production systems, pivoting to production systems. If you can go back to the original Midnight Blizzard article with that graphic of how the attack worked, non-production, what is it? We scroll up right there. Non-production legacy test account. They were then able to do hijacking, gaining access to OAuth apps, getting access to all of these different things. And for many organizations, they would say, sorry, that account that you got was not a production account. Therefore, there was no risk associated with it. And I want to punt this over to Kelly because I've ranted enough. Kelly, whenever you're working with companies and you're doing GRC, you're doing audit, you're doing compliance, as somebody that's been doing compliance for a really long time, how in the hell do you split that this is production, this is not production, as far as implementation of different compliance standards, and how you put that in as somebody that's assessing the security of an organization to strike that balance?
Well, there's a couple things. I think, first of all, a lot of organizations, they're moving quickly. And sometimes I've got friends who like to say agile just means you're being lazy. There should be a hard wall, a moat between production.
Stop.
What?
Hold on. I've got to text Jason. We're going to make that into a shirt.
Oh, no.
100%. Kelly,
I actually disagree with that, but anyway.
All right, go ahead. Sorry,
it was a gross statement, but in some organizations, sometimes say we're agile, we just got to get it into production, can be less effective. I'll tone that down a little bit. But what I'm trying to say is, There should be a definite moat, like a castle, between production and testing systems. And to be able to get promoted from production to test, or to move from one environment to the other, there needs to be control management and change management. John, that's how we sort of measure that gap. And you said it a little earlier in our conversation here. It's about risk. I think in some organizations we just misinterpret the risk between that little area between production and our corporate environment. I'm sorry, between test and our production environment.
And I kind of remember, like, years ago, we were having a conversation at some restaurant, I want to say in Florida, but I'm not sure. And you were talking about an audit that you were working on, and you were talking to a customer, and they said this is not a production system, but they had production data on that system as part of like their dev environment, right? They were running production data through a dev system to make sure it was like QCing properly. And you were arguing with the customer. I can't remember the exact quote, but you were basically like, that's a production system. And they're like, no, it's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. And you're like, it has production data. It's a production system. Is that a good delineation still? Like, there's production data. Let's not kid ourselves. It is production at a minimum.
Well, if it's PII, it's production.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm taking a bad view of things, but I guess from my perspective, if you're doing Agile right, everything is production. That's how I would see it. It's like there's no environment that we don't test, that we don't like look at, that we don't scan, that we don't consider sensitive. Like, I don't know. It's obviously not always possible to say, well, all security controls are in place on all systems, but I don't get why you would just say, oh, well, security was an afterthought, because like you should never start that sentence. You shouldn't begin to say, well, security didn't apply because, like, just apply security to everything.
Oh, no.
It's like the chaos engineering thing.
I was thinking the same thing, Corey, in the context of DevOps, right? How do we square DevOps with production versus test, when DevOps kind of is a dev to production kind of process, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of organizations. So I think it gets more difficult, blurry, if you like, because of the speed and efficiencies that people are introducing with DevOps. That is also introducing challenges, significant challenges from a security perspective.
So I'm a pen tester, a red teamer, whatever you want to call me. I always test in production. There's nothing else I know. I only hack real accounts. I'm not going after some fake test account. I should be, obviously, based on APT 29, but I guess
accidentally tested in production.
Yeah, I was going to ask Penn, who's a real, web app or someone who's focused on actual test environments. How often do you test in a test environment? Is it always? Is it like, what is the ratio, and how much delineation do you see between test and prod?
On like authenticated web app tests, I would say 60 or 70% of our customers actually give us dev environments, or at the very least give us test accounts in production environments, so you cannot target real customer data, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was actually not BHIS related at all, but I was testing a university system one time, and they're like, "Yep, all of this is dev." So obviously I was like, okay, so what happens if I change this request for information, just change the host header to the production system using dev grids and everything?
Don't
that
do
request
that.
took a while to respond, and there was lots of data in response.
Yep.
So
yeah, well, it's
the
I mean, I
definition
think
of a system.
Yeah, I mean, as a pen tester, I'm not like a developer by any stretch, but like reading, the Agile Manifesto and other things, like I would see it as kind of the extension of chaos engineering. It's like security chaos engineering. Everything is production. Everything is an incident worth investigating. Everything is like needs MFA and needs security, whether or not it's, early stage dev or whether it's production.
But I think that that's a collision of kind of like where we were and where we're going, right? Like if we have the traditional Active Directory environment, right, where you have a DMZ, and in your DMZ you have a web server, and that DMZ is the delineation between your Active Directory environment and everything on the internet that's not the Active Directory environment. And now we're moving to cloud computing. And of course, we can get in like complete weird circles by talking about zero trust. And it's almost like we have this old mindset of dev and production and all of that. And now we're trying to move to the agile thing. We're trying to move to the cloud. We're trying to move to zero trust. And those lines get really, really, really blurred very quickly. And I think you run into this collision, like I said, from kind of a mental perspective of like, especially with web apps, where you're just like, we need to be doing traditional old school style testing. And yet the rest of the apps are moving at the speed of like agile, and you're doing stuff in the cloud. You're spinning things up very, very, very fast and having all the security vulnerabilities that come with it. And then offloading all of the security risk to it's the SaaS vendor, which we have more SaaS vendor stuff coming up as well. So stay tuned.
And more SaaS.
And
Of course.
Into one. Here's another SaaS. The Bank of America. Bank of America is warning its customers of a data breach, exposing their personal information after Infosys McCamish Systems, one of its service providers, was hacked last year. Now, the reason why I absolutely love this story is the fine folks at Bleeping Computer reached out for details for Bank of America, and Bank of America literally just said, go talk to Infosys McCamish. And the reason why I like this story is when we moved our email at Black Hills Information Security to Google, and then eventually we moved it over to Microsoft, there was a lot of people, especially in the early days of BHIS, that were like, why are you moving your mail to Google Mail? Like, the only way to do security right is you want to stand up your own email server and you harden that thing. You don't
Squirrel
trust
mail.
Squirrel mail. Right? Yeah, we're going to lock it all down.
Toast.
If I build that server and that server is hacked, that's 100% on me. If I do this through Google and there's a vulnerability in Google, the news story is Google was hacked. And boy, Bank of America is leaning into this, basically saying, hey, you need to go talk to the people that actually got hacked, not us. And I wonder do you think that this is a strategy that works, or do you think maybe its time is going to be somewhat limited?
I think it works a few times, and then if you keep picking vendors that keep getting hacked, people are going to start asking you, like, what is your due diligence process? Like, how are you picking these vendors? Who is picking these?
Fired for hiring Okta. Oh, God, wait.
Too soon?
Too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, my question.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, my question is I wonder who made that suggestion to point them to the third party. Was it a technical decision? Did a lawyer make the decision? Did a PR expert make the decision? Because I think who recommended it tells us why they did it. And I hear your point, John. Interesting. If you're the one who got breached, then you have responsibility for it. But is there a contractual obligation that says if Bank of America points it to them, then they don't have to do as many breach notifications? Because I wonder, as a Bank of America customer, I did not get a breach notification.
And you wouldn't, because it wasn't their system. Breach.
Only 53K people's info was breached, and for anyone wondering, it was IMS got hit by Lockbit. So, I guess from Bank of America's perspective, it is kind of fair. They have to. It's like, this is kind of an interesting thing for Kelly to comment on. Regulatory requirements required them to file a data breach notification in Maine or whatever state like is the current canary in the gold mine for breaches, and then. Basically they had to file it because it is their customer data, but it wasn't their fault. If their vendor gets ransomware, I mean, what are you going to do about that? Like, not use that vendor. That's about all you can do. So I guess, like, from a regulatory perspective, do you see this as working as intended? Or is it like they had to file, which makes them look like they got breached, but then they just have to point the finger? Because if one of your vendors gets ransomware, it's not like you can't stop your vendors from getting ransomware at the end of the day. At least I don't see that as being like, what is your security program? Oh yeah, we stop all of our vendors from getting ransomware. Explain how.
We do their security for them.
Explain how.
So Corey, to answer your question, that's kind of what I was alluding to, is there is a strategy involved here, and it's not just straight black and white. There is a breach notification, send it out. Somebody decided how to handle it. I don't know if it was because of their cyber insurance policy, if it was their communications plan. I don't have enough information really to answer your question if it worked the way it was supposed to work, because I don't know who initiated it.
Well, I mean, like the regulation, I guess. It's like, is this one step too far as like these requirements? I mean, I personally see it as useful because otherwise, as a consumer, like you mentioned, I'm a customer. Otherwise, I would have no idea they were breached, other than I get that letter in the mail that says you're eligible for a class action lawsuit like 3 years later.
Perfect.
Would you like to nick it?
So you can get $6
if you're lucky.
I want to keep riffing on this. There's a quote from Ben from Casey. Said that is the role of third-party diligence, right? And this whole idea of supply chain security management. I kind of want to ask, like, we got like the grifts and the snake oil, like security scorecard, and those types of companies out there, where they're like, we'll look at the outside posture of an organization and we'll make a determination as to whether or not they're secure, which is just, it's very light. It's not in depth. I don't know. I really don't like it. And that's my own personal opinion that I think it's a scam, y'all. So take it with a grain of salt and always validate on your own. But is it possible to do third-party validation before you start working with these different SaaS providers to make sure that you're not working with an organization that has absolutely horrible security practices?
I'll let other people go on that. I have a hot take, but I'll save it for last.
You can go at the end, Corey.
Well, so what is due diligence? If due diligence is saying, I'm going to send you a spreadsheet and fill it out, that may or may not, that's not really due diligence. We used to have cybersecurity insurance years ago when we had an MSP, and it was basically 5 questions. And one of the questions was, are you doing antivirus? Okay, you are. Great. Then you're showing security due diligence. And as at the same time that we were implementing MFA. So their questionnaire wasn't really asking a true risk-based conversation or question. But back to Ben from KC's point, if he's trying to build trust as an organization saying, hey, we want to pass along this information that one of our third parties had an issue, then that's a good strategy. You're not tattletaling on them. You're saying, hey, we want to be transparent with our customers, so we're going to pass on this notification.
Anyone else have a hot take?
Picard said, until your customer comes to you with a security scorecard or BitSite report saying improve your grade by next quarter or we're moving our business, that crap happens, which once again is part of the reason why it feels like that is infosec mafia. Like, it'd be a damn shame if this business got a bad score rating for its security.
All right, here's my take on this. I've been doing this security testing thing for a long time, like 10 plus years. And I would say any checklist you make on how you can do due diligence, I can come up with an example of a breach that doesn't apply to that due diligence. And also I would say I generally do keep track of a list of, and I don't have this written down, but in my head, the customers I've tested and how secure they felt at the time, and then the customers that have gotten breached afterwards or in the past. And I would say there is absolutely no correlation between what I felt the customer security level was and what the likelihood they actually get breached were. I have tested customers and thought these people are going to get breached tomorrow. They have all these huge issues, and then nothing. I've tested customers where I thought this is one of the most secure organizations out there. They're doing everything right, and they get breached the next month. It's a lot of it comes down to, first of all, luck, which, I mean, let's not talk about that, but it is a big thing. These exploits and breaches are chains. And if one of those links in that chain breaks, it could be due to luck. You might have had that one alert that you set up 6 years ago that you forgot about, but it fired at the right time, and that's why you didn't get breached. So I would say, like, if you're doing third-party risk management, beyond just the basic spreadsheet that Kelly mentioned, which you should do because you need it from your perspective to have things documented and written down that you at least checked them, I don't think you can build a checklist that says, if you can pass all these checks, then you're breach free, because that just doesn't, it's not real. That's an illusion of security. That's my personal opinion. But
so Zach, we need a new marketing thing. GRC, it's all just luck.
Pen testing.
Well,
it's a job program for geeks.
If your strategy is to get lucky and you can actually pull that off, that's a really good strategy.
Right. You made it through a year without getting hacked. Go to Vegas.
So speaking of speaking of like absolutely horrible hacks, and I really want to get Ralph to talk about this one. Krebs on security. U.S. internet leaked years of internal customer emails. There's a couple of things about this story that are really, really, really tweaky. The first thing about this story is Brian Krebs, as soon as he notified them and tried to get a comment for his news story, they immediately responded back with, "Do you do consulting?" And he said, "No." But he said it really felt icky, like as though they were trying to get him on retainer so he wouldn't go public. I mean, it's bad when Krebs actually puts that in the article. He's like, these guys felt dirty. Also, this breach is like the level of stupid in this.
This is like zero hack. This is just, we just left it all open and whoops.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And then the quote, and this is what I wanted to get from you, Ralph, was they gave a convoluted answer on how this actually happened. They said the feedback from my team was an issue with the Ansible playbook that controls the Nginx server configuration for our IMAP servers. Said that noting that this incorrect configuration was put in place by a former employee and never was caught. U.S. Internet has not shared how long these messages were exposed.
So, sum this up. I'm going to sum this up. We didn't know what we were doing.
Can you translate that for us?
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, and somebody else did, and they left.
No, wait. The icing on the cake would be if it said current or previously current, now former employee.
I've got this, guys. Not only we didn't know what we were doing, our employee that was fired in 1995 left his code running on a server, gathering dust in the corner of the organization.
Yes,
that's what this is.
There's nothing in that response about like security or like this is just stuff that got left. It sounds like they were like, "Whoops, we didn't know that was still doing stuff over there," and nobody's
and the list was being published with a Perl script.
Yeah. I mean,
but as they tend to say in these things, but wait, there's more. Holden said he also discovered that the hackers have been abusing the Securance link scrubbing anti-spam service called URL Shield to create links that look benign, but instead redirect visitors to hacked and malicious websites.
Oh, gosh.
Bad guys modify the malicious link, reporting it into redirects into their own malicious sites. That's how the bad guys drive traffic to their sites and increase their search engine notifications. Like, it just keeps getting worse. Like,
yeah, the employee that we fired got hired as a COBOL programmer in 1999.
And also at this point, you're oversharing, Holden. Like, when Brian Krebs asks you about a breach, answer the data about the breach. Don't bring up, but there's more. More stuff that's pretty bad here.
Oh, bad.
That thing that we have that's supposed to secure links? Turns out the bad guys have been using that to spread malicious links.
Here's what blows my mind more than anything, John. It just blows my mind that companies like this are, still in business, right? There's enough profit doing these things, right? That they can just stay in business and not, I don't know.
I can write a Perl script that leaks in
well, I joked in the Discord, but basically, as we have the recurring meme of after a company gets breached, they have the job posting. Well, this job posting would just be like job posting, hiring for a senior security architect. Bob, please come back. We need you. Like it's just one guy. They're just specifically targeting like whoever we fired. We're sorry. We messed it up. Come back. Well, you can have sudo now.
I think also
I hate joking about this because there's crap in the back of my head. It's like someday BHIS is going to get hacked. God, I know. It's just a matter of time.
No, John.
But John, when that happens,
third party, so that's their hack, not ours.
You're right.
When that happens, we'll point the finger. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh God. So
also, I did buy those Amazon gift cards. You told me about.
This isn't just us pigpiling, right? Like, let's back up for a second. This is bad, right? Like this.
Yes.
Like this isn't just a bunch of infosec people saying,
hold on.
Hold on. For an ISP, this is pretty low grade.
Yeah.
For ISP. But they have that security company, Securance or whatever they're called. Securance. Yeah. But when you have a website that you can browse to, you can click on your customers, and then what is it? You can then click that link and gain access to the inboxes for each. That's bad.
That's
right?
a feature, John. You know how convenient that is? That is so convenient.
How
I've
are you
never had
supposed
it
to
so
get your
easy.
old email if you can't do this?
I bet I could drop a bet on this. There's another Perl script that publishes the address of the routers in the ISP with the telnet ports, and click on it and you'll telnet into the router.
Oh my God.
So this is bad, but
It's
can we talk about that the U.S. military was doing about the same thing with email?
Oh, yes. I did want to do that transition.
Oh no.
I did want to do that transition. It's not just bad, but it's not lonely.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the U.S. military has been spilling emails as well, except for this time it was on GovCloud, right? So for those who don't know,
GovCloud is secure. This is impossible that it got breached.
So hold on. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure there's probably a bunch of other stuff that happens on a GovCloud, but in general, the gist is that like it's a data center. The government
it says
knows.
Gov on it.
Yeah,
that's all
Gov on it. Yeah.
Branded.
So I'm gonna sum this up to it's the more expensive version of Azure that you can't get without being a government employee. Anyways, so I guess there was a exposed to the public internal mailbox system storing 3 terabytes of internal emails, part of the U.S. Special Operations Command,
including SF-86s.
Yes, SF-86s, all kinds of fun stuff. And I guess it was just a Shodan search away. I am kidding you not.
All you have to do now is hire someone to pretend and make the paper trail connect that this was actually an APT that was using it as their staging server. That's what you have to do. You have to be like, listen, bring in the company. They're going to pretend. They're going to point the finger, do the old false flag. It was actually an APT. We're not stupid. We just got hacked.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no one hacked the U.S. Special Operations Command information systems.
Well, there's always the old tagline, "It was Russia." I mean,
yeah. But the response from USOCOM, Ken McGraw said in an email Tuesday, which the investigation, which was on Monday, is underway. And it says, based on this investigation, quote, "We can confirm at this point no one hacked U.S. Special Operations Command's information systems." I don't know who they're hiring to do that investigation, but they suck because they are hacked.
Well, no, John, remember before how we were talking about if it's not production, it doesn't matter. Cough, Microsoft. Right. It's the same thing. As long as it's not classified, it's fine. It's fine.
It's not
so
it's just the SF-86 forms.
I do believe
that's not classified. It's no big deal.
I do believe that Azure GovCloud does have a classified segment, right? But hopefully, God willing, it's not connected to the internet.
Seraph 111 said, "It's not being hacked if it's just exposed."
Would you rather be dumb or would you rather be hacked? Which one would you pick? If
they chose dumb. They're leaning right into dumb. Like
really? I would rather get hacked because you can't stop hacks.
I thought the fun part about this, the last thing about this, is that it wasn't necessarily a hack, just there was no password.
Right. That's what I mean. Well, but that's what I mean. Like, from my perspective, if I was the CISO of SOCOM, which, I mean, thank God I'm not, for everyone else.
That would be a command.
I would be like, we got hacked by Russia, right? Like, I mean, come on. If you crashed a truck in the desert, just say that it got blown up. Like, it's not like it's that simple.
Lie. Just
lie through your teeth, man. This Humvee was definitely hit by an.
We weren't going over ramps in it. That definitely would never happen. It definitely was an IED.
Which, by the way,
very small IED.
Okay.
I have also found exposed customer emails on pen tests more than once. But perhaps a more optimistic way to look at both this story and the last is it is a great reminder to those of us who are security consultants to always browse to all of the URLs and always check the easy things before spending a lot of time.
Like what do we say all the time at Black House? It's like go through the lows and informationals. Go through the lows and informationals. Right. They're gold. Like that's where you're going to find the good stuff. It's not going to be a critical that has a Metasploit vulnerability. I don't even think that we had a remote exploit like that on the outside of an environment using an exploit that was published in Metasploit. Maybe once last year, but those lows and informationals are gold. Chef's kiss almost every single time. So use them. That's
and
what they're there.
Shodan is just a fun
Shodan
Shodan.
still works. It's still effective at finding, all
sorts of fun stuff. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on.
Cisco, you mentioned it. You got to go Cisco.
Cisco. Or you're going to get fired.
Stick to switching and routing. I'm telling you.
Yes. They're laying off 5% of their workforce. And the thing that sucks is
join the club.
I've been around these companies whenever they're making these types of decisions. And literally it's a whole bunch of guys in a room. And they're like, well, we need to structure and restructure. And they don't think about what they're actually doing. They don't even really think about who they're letting go. They don't like AI. All of our investors are, they're asking us about artificial intelligence. We've got to do something. And Joff just put in text, absolutely right. Totally a stock price decision, right? Because you're going to have Kramer on Mad Money. He's like throwing like rubber cows at the camera saying, it's a brilliant move by the investor, by the people at Cisco. There's this huge thing. You got to invest in AI. And Cisco is showing this type of determination and they're going to restructure it on AI. And that's why I think Cisco is a AI.
Wow. What podcast am I on?
Yeah.
It hurts so bad to see this stuff because Cisco, between all of us and all of you, you're not going to win in AI. Like, you're going to lose. Microsoft and Google beat you to that punch. As Joff just said, stick to routing and switching and destroying formerly good security.
I see you're trying to set up router RIP. Would you like some help with that?
Yes.
My fear is
here. Please put a chatbot in the CLI onlys that you have for all of your products, which is an appeal, right? I have one in there to help me get the commands back. Awesome. I can't wait.
So, okay. I will say this from a, like, let's go high level business here. One thing that's interesting is they're saying they're going to lay off about 4,000 people, but they're saying over the course of the next year. Does that not seem like... That seems really bad. I feel like you pull the Band-Aid, you lay the people off, and then your stock price go up. To just say, like, this is basically an announcement. It's like, we're going to kind of suck for a couple of years. So just like, don't look.
No, we told you to make the AI this year, and if you don't do it, you're out.
That's what I read into it, but the investors don't. Also, if you read this article a little bit further, them laying off 4% of their workforce is going to cost them something like $800 million, I think, for the restructuring that they're planning on doing.
Yeah, with several
termination benefits would cost a total of $800 million.
So, okay, this
$100 million. It's going to cost them almost $1 billion to good God. Like,
yeah, but John, that's just their monthly subscription to ChatGPT right now. They're trying to cut that.
Oh, they got to cut back, man. They got to cut back.
I mean, I will say that, like, they did just buy Splunk. I don't know. The corporate world right now seems to be very confused.
Which,
they're
by
just
the way,
like,
Cisco always just buys somebody when they want to get into that market.
Corey, I've got this quote in the article that when you say Splunk, kind of sums this up. The company, contending with falling revenue, has turned its focus on booming AI industry. Last year, the company announced it would acquire, quote unquote, machine learning and cybersecurity company Splunk.
They're really spinning that one. They're like, it's machine learning.
There's data in there, John. So I mean,
there's data, so it's machine learning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think shareholders can tell the difference between Splunk and an LLM?
No, they can't.
No.
12 RZA. Oh my God. Hot take of the day so far. Yeah. Companies are far too bloated with people that don't contribute to anything. They have arbitrary jobs like director of creativity
things
or director of HR.
Okay, hold on.
Cold.
Now, RZA, now you have to write a job posting for the new head of AI and their respective roles that they have.
And I'm not going to disagree with that. Like, working with a lot of these very large companies, working in the government sector, we all have stories, right? We all have. I thought HR were our friends. In almost every single one of these companies that you go to, there is absolutely a lot of bloat. Like, I mean, when I worked at various Big Five consulting companies, I guess, in the past, like, seriously, there was always one or two people that were working their ass off, and there was like 12 or 13 people leaning on shovels, which is confusing because we were in a knock. Why do they even have shovels to lean on? Anyway,
digging a grave.
But you just do see that there is inefficiencies, and if they were going to address the inefficiencies, whether it's the government or Cisco or IBM, great, then do that. But I also know that what happens with this 4% cut is not fixing efficiency. They're going to indiscriminately lay off a bunch of people. And part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this, and I completely forgot up until now, is because you're going to see somebody possibly in the future that formerly worked at Cisco and was let go. And it's very common for executives to say things like, well, if they were let go, then they're on the bottom 4% of Cisco. And that's bullshit. You cannot look at the people that are let go with these stupid effing layoffs as though they're cutting the fat and they're focusing on like their top performance. That's not how these layoffs go in these large companies. Because if they're inefficient before they laid off people, they're going to be inefficient at laying off people. So please do me a favor. Do not judge these people that are laid off harshly because they literally, they I don't know, a bunch of dolphins taking names out of a pool somewhere.
They could be their top performer too, and then
absolutely
they're also their higher end pay, right? And so they're looking to, they're not looking at necessarily, because it can be hard sometimes in this large of an organization or just a really large organization to like quantify the output of the employee, right? Like other people may be like, oh yeah, this person really is busting their butt, whereas somebody else who's getting paid less is doing good enough.
Let's also talk about, this is a strategy move. They're moving away from certain business units to focus on other business units. Whether that was the right move or not is up to debate. Is Cisco going to make a huge play at AI, fail miserably, and then it's going to spin off all the routing and switching into another company? Or the other fun prediction we can make now is, okay, so if the people who are maintaining all the legacy business, let's call it routing and switching, whatever you want to call it, now that they're all getting laid off, are products that have pending security flaws going to be just shelved and left to rot? Like, is it going to be like the same thing we were talking about with the Elevance or whatever? I forget what it was called, the company that was securing the email for that ISP. If they got, is it like that, where it's like they just fired all the people that were like doing the security stuff and now it's just gone forever? It's like, no, that patch is marked as on hold.
Don't worry. In Cisco's case, they'll just acquire a new product and say, this is our latest strategy, man.
Oh my God. I mean, that's Cisco's like number one game, right? They buy other companies. Historically, that's what they do. They acquire the company and they integrate it with whatever they're trying to do. I mean, that is their MO from the very get-go. They're not innovators. They're an acquiring company. So,
yeah.
Fun.
Well, my fear to integrate it. Try.
My fear is there's going to be layoffs in Duo. And I was...
Wait, what?
For Duo.
Duo
Cisco
Security?
bought Duo. Yeah.
Yeah, they're part of
Cisco bought Duo.
So we're putting so much emphasis on MFA, and we're talking about MFA, and we always talk about MFA on Mondays. How many of these layoffs are going to affect their MFA business unit?
Well, is it AI-based MFA?
Kelly, I think that's a great point. And I think it goes to, like, a lot of times whenever they're cutting these people out of the company, they look at these cash cows, because I look at Duo as a cash cow. They're not really innovating. I know somebody from Duo is going to fricking email me now right after I get the email from Security Scorecard.
Well, they're not getting breached either, which is your two options right now in MFA are breaches or cash cow, I guess.
Yeah. But what happens with these companies with these layoffs is they look at their cash cow business units and they're not innovating and disrupting. So those are the business units that they cut. And Kelly is absolutely right. Like, that is a huge problem in these companies, because they take the stuff that they actually make money off of that are boring to try to shove more money in the innovation place so they can do some type of growth, I guess. I don't know. The other thing I hate about this is no one remembers. Like, when you're working inside of these companies, and we got a lot of people that are listening right now, I want to see if you've ever seen this, where executives make these decisions and they're the wrong decision again and again and again. And no one ever sits down and is like, this executive has bled out almost $1 billion on this thing. It didn't turn around. And people just don't forget the failures of the executives, or more often than not, the executives move on so fast.
No, I was going to say, John, they fire them. They fire them right away, or they leave because, whatever, it's not working out, and they're going to move on to their next parachute. And then, they're just turnover of new executives with really bad ideas, because all they did was show up and they're like, I got a thing that's going to change everything. The last guy who was here had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we have our job posting, as we do on the show. Riza posted Director of Artificial Intelligence position at Cisco, mandatory 15 years experience with OpenAI, so you had to be there before the company existed. 5 years experience integrating Midjourney onto social media posts, just copy and pasting and adding thumbs. And then salary is 100K or 100K, depending on stock experience and value.
I think the salary's a bit low.
Yeah,
I mean, just
15
For
years.
Cisco,
That's really
I don't know.
Well, it was written by AI. It doesn't really understand numbers. You can get it to say 2 + 2 = 5 if you try hard enough. So
just say please.
Hey, we have a request from Discord to talk about Air Canada chatbot.
Air Canada.
Oh, is this the one where they had to like honor the price because the chatbot mixed
the
stuff?
chatbot was responsible for its own actions when giving the wrong information.
Yeah.
chatbot went all hallucinogen on them, and then
So all right. So this, I guess,
the
would be
AI is
like,
functioning as intended, though. It's convincing people into buying full price tickets.
Yeah.
That's just a win.
you told it to make more sales, and it did. You didn't like its outcome?
It is insane to me that someone has actually plugged a production chatbot like this in, and it's amazing. They were ordered to pay compensation, for the record. So the good guys, aka the people talking to the chatbot, did win. I guess we don't really know what the settlement or payout is, but essentially the scenario is I'm talking to the AI chatbot, as one does. It's 2 a.m. and I don't want to call help support and wait for like 3 hours.
They always are there for you, chatbots.
Oh my
They're
God.
always there for you. I'm talking to the chatbot. I'm asking it questions about, how much the fees are, how much the vouchers are, and it's giving me answers that are, super quickly. It's not saying, as a large language model, I can't comment on your appearance. But essentially, the person ended up paying for a full price ticket. The voucher was wrong, and they basically, it ended up in some kind of dispute where the user saying, well, it told me this, and then it wasn't this. So he sued them, which is amazing.
Good call.
And essentially,
ChatGPT to write his actual lawsuit.
of course, Air Canada then argued that the chatbot was a separate legal entity and was responsible for its own actions. I'm sorry. Could you sue a chatbot? Like,
Is Cisco
what is
buying
it? Is it like Bob versus ChatGPT?
I'm dying, dude. I'm dying.
Is ChatGPT going to defend itself by making up legal cases, as we've seen?
Why did they fight
we are
this?
going to put an AI into court, my friend. It's going to happen.
Why did Air Canada fight this?
I don't know.
Because they made it worse, right?
Yeah.
People agree they objectively made this worse for themselves.
John, it's because their AI legal chatbot said to fight it.
They had to fire their whole legal team. They replaced it with a chatbot. You can see it's a violent circle.
I just have this vision of a bunch of chatbots out there like Bela Lugosi doing pull the strings.
Yes, I can help you with that. Hold on, here's some stuff I made up that will defend you in a legal environment.
Chatbots are like, if you put the humans in the jar and you shake it, they fight each other. Look.
It is insane to me, by the way, the settlement amount, if you're wondering, 650 Canadian pesos, aka roughly
like
$500
or something.
It's like the stupidest thing. They're fighting, like, they're basically the PR disaster of like
Over
we're
like a
stupid is going to cost them a little more than $500 in my opinion, but whatever.
I don't know why they fought this. If they would have just paid, we're sorry, our bad.
Well, no. Well, John, what they have to do, airlines right now, they have to struggle to maintain who can have the worst customer experience and worst customer service. They're actually looking at stacking seats on top of each other. That's going to go pretty well.
I want my face in someone's ass. Like,
I know. And also if the doors fall off.
That way I know when they fart. Like,
especially
on the airplane.
You won't know because the door fell off.
Coming up.
Yeah.
We're like, it was him.
Hold on, I'm going to air this out a little bit. I just farted and then the door falls off. That's what I call a great experience.
I was on a Max, Max 9 or Max 8 where the door fell off. Was it a 9?
Scared.
I was on that. I was right at that seat where the door plug was.
Did you check the bolts?
I always check the bolts.
Boeing didn't.
Eric and the kids were like, "That's really sucks for you, Dad." I'm like, you know what? I know that the bolts on that part of the plane are the most tested and evaluated bolts.
That's true.
And yet he still pulled out a wrench and tightened them.
Can we get like, you know how in the airline seat configurator, you know, there's like economy plus. Can we get like little red seats that just says danger zone, and like they're just put randomly throughout the aircraft? Like,
chatbots can sell those for $15.
The price adjustment is like -$900. It's like danger zone. You're like, should I do this?
I did read about like a hack that somebody was doing with the airline. So you know how if an airline's not full or whatever, you can pick your seat or you can pick your seat before you get on the plane, right? Or, you know, like the week before.
If you're fancy and you paid for an economy plus.
Yeah. So what you do is you get like the economy basic seat. And then right before the plane would board, or on some of the airlines, it'll let you see what seats are available still, right? If it's not overbooked. And then you just go sit in that seat because it's not been booked down to like the second when the plane gets on. I guess some people are getting a better seat.
Yeah, you can see that in the flight app, like in United, status seat map, and then you can see it.
Whole, you know, it kind of adds a whole new meaning to the word jump seat, right?
Yes, there you go. All right, so there's your free hack.
But I'm gonna tell you all that hack does not work, at least on United, because they do know who's in what seats. Well, like whenever they go through. Yeah. And they will ask you to go back to your, because I see people try that all the time.
Because they'll pull up on their phone and be like, "This seat's supposed to be open. You're not allowed to sit on it." Yeah.
Yeah, and when they go through, like they're at the point now where
they close the door, it's over.
Yeah, but they have it on their iPad. Like when they're giving food and drink, they'll be like, "Mr. Strand, would you like something to drink? Would you like?"
Oh, yeah. Well, that's only where you're sitting at. They're just like, "Hey, dude."
No. It's through the whole thing. I've seen people jump up to economy plus. I've seen them try to go to first class, and I love.
No, that's the one that they would catch you for sure.
Yeah,
you're not making it in
the
first.
Go to first class, but even economy plus, like they'll be on you very, very, very quickly. They know. And
when you're in first class, they'll call you sir, and I'll be like,
usually when I'm flying, they just throw peanuts at my head. They don't usually use names.
Okay, should we close this out with a Kelly-friendly story? Okay, so it's literally the first article in the Notion, so I'm dropping it in. It's the FCC ordering telecom carriers that they have to report PII breaches within 30 days. Kelly, can you explain this? I feel like this has to already be required. Like, how is this somehow new? I don't get it.
It is. They've been talking about it for a few years, but it actually is a new FCC order, believe it or not. But we talked a little bit earlier on this news episode that telecoms. We don't necessarily, I don't want to say we don't understand what they do, but they've had a lot of leniency. And, you know, they were in the news when we were talking about 702 laws and that sort of thing. So I'm actually kind of glad that FCC is demanding that telecoms report PII breaches, because if you don't have a good home router filtering setup, your telecom knows way too much about you, at least in my opinion. But I'm sure somebody will disagree with me.
So what I want to know is them selling my data considered a PII breach, or is that just normal business operations?
Normal business.
We call that a rat bastard breach.
Because, well, I will say this might as well, you know how there's like laws that have like a name, like Miranda rights or whatever? Is this like the Comcast law? Is that what this is?
It was designed because you have really bad companies out there. They're like, we need you guys. I'm sorry, you need this. Okay, you guys.
Yeah, like Comcast was breached. You know, I guess T-Mobile. It should really be the T-Mobile law. They've been breached the most. They're still on the top of the hill.
T-Mobile could pull out a banjo and start singing all the songs of all the times they've been breached.
Yes, they could.
I want to start a company. We're just a data aggregation company. So what happens is a company brings in data and it gets filtered through us. We don't hold it for any period of time or whatever, but we're always available to be blamed. So,
John, Cisco just sent an offer for $10 billion. You in?
Yeah, let's see if we can get some private equity funding in this. Like, it just comes through us.
Needs this,
and then you can put it in your press release. There was a breach in this third-party company. It can be near stuff, right? But you can just say this company had access to our data, and the breach was over there, and no one's going to go like any layers at all. They're
John,
like,
this is so evil and would definitely work.
I know. Right?
We should redact this episode of the news and go make $1 million.
Honestly, this episode should be called Redacted.
Is it called Scapegoats Inc. or something? What's it called?
Scapegoats.
Every time
LLC.
John says I want to start a company, I just imagine that he's sitting in like an SUV, driving through at like a McDonald's in Delaware, going, "Can I have a Big Mac and an LLC to go, please?"
Oh my God.
Proxmox, he just gave the URL is weaccepttherisks.xyz is the name of the company, is We Accept the Risk, and I'm going to make them the CEO of that company.
And can the website just say?
No, wait, no. I want to be the CEO. I want somebody to take the fall for me, so I'm going to make Proxmox the CISO.
Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
there you go. There you onto it.
And also,
he has to
someone
be
else
an
can
intern that gets paid a lot.
Ooh,
So,
the shooters.
okay.
Ryan, you came up with a good one. Is Scapegoats LLC. I like that one too. Well done.
Yes, that's pretty good. But the question I have is, should the website just say, if you are reading this, we've been hacked? Like, that's just the website. Like, no one goes there. No one's ever heard of this company until.
If you're reading this, we've been hacked. Sorry.
Instead of a notification canary, it's like the opposite. It's like we still think
It's just always being
not
breached.
hacked.
It's always the
if
default
somebody-
condition is breached.
If somebody clicks the link for "We're sorry," it takes them automatically to like credit monitoring, and then we get a kickback from the credit monitor.
Yes, a referral link to
referral link.
Yes. Oh, this is amazing. There is definitely criminals watching the show being like, yes, and now next, where do I send the money? Well, we can't explain
Where do I
that
send
part.
the cash? So,
I
all right.
read it
So
as a
really
buy.
bad ideas. It's a really bad idea, and it's time to close out the show. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, why? Also, Black Hills Information Security. We do pen tests, we do SOC work, we do IR work. We've got a product that detects advanced attackers in AC Hunter. There's your marketing slant for today. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.